this opportunity especially to thank Dick Foyt's family, and I want to thank Shorty Schuett. Why? Because they brought us again. They brought in some artifacts from Ashippun's history. The Foyts has brought in a couple of calendars that they used to give away at Christmas time, the local merchants. And we love calendars, and we have quite a selection of them back there in the case. And Shorty and Carol brought in a couple more of those little Christmas trinkets the merchants used to give out. We love to collect those too. And with that, I'm going to turn the introduction of tonight's presentation over to what's his name? Mr. Bob Campbell, the mayor of Cherry Hill.
Well, this is what our history committee is all about, is big interest out in rehearsing the past. I happen to find a postcard at a flea market, and I said to my wife Harriet, that is a ski jump on Cherry Hill, on Collins Lake, whatever you want to call it. And she said, no, it was $20, that's why she said no. But I bought it, and I took it home, and I showed it to Wally Fikes and Urban Skalstad, and they said, it is absolutely the jump. And Wally said, you know, nobody remembers it anymore. And Urban says, we got to do something about that. So we scanned the newspaper, and one of the best sources of information was Elmo Halverson. He lives in Racine now. He's 90, what, 2, 3, something like that. And he gave us a lot of information. In fact, I think he's the last living ski jumper from the Ashippun Hartford Ski Club. So anyway, I don't know how your dad got a hold of the picture, but it was on your kitchen table. Rachel saw it, and she grabbed the ball and ran with it, or should I say the skis, and slid with it. She did a wonderful job on her book. Wait till we get page 163.
Is that where you went on the side of the slope?
Yeah. She's going to tell you more about that ski jump. I think she knows more about it than any other living individual, including me. It's all yours, Rachel.
Well, thank you very much for having me at the Ashippun Town Hall and the Historical Society. You kind of took my intro and ran with it yourself there, Bob. I was just going to kind of tell people how I got started in this particular type of a story. Back in 2004, I was at my parents' house. My parents are Frank and Kathy Multer. They live on Resthaven Road across the street from Charlotte. And they were good friends with Wally, and they've been there now for over 20 years. And in 2004, I was walking through their kitchen, and on the kitchen counter there was this black and white photograph. And it was a picture of a ski hill with a ski jump on the top, and there was a relatively small crowd of people gathered around the ski jump. And I said, what is this? And my mom told me that our neighbor, Erwin Skalstad, had walked it over and brought this picture over and said, did you guys know that up on the top of that hill right there used to exist the Hartford Ski Club ski slide? And they were dumbfounded. They absolutely could not believe that on their land, it was almost a historical landmark, even though there wasn't anything existing of the ski jump anymore. They couldn't believe that that ski jump had existed there. And I couldn't either. I thought that was fascinating. And at the time, I had just finished writing my first novel, which is totally, completely, 100% non-publishable. It was more just a process to kind of get myself through the whole idea of writing a book. And I really wanted to delve myself into doing some historical research and write something that had some substance. And this just, I don't know, it just felt like it was right to me to research the ski jump. Now I knew I wanted my main character to be a female. And so I thought, well, first thing I need to do is I need to go and interview Irv. So I went over to Irv's house, and he very promptly welcomed me into his home as if I were either one of his daughters or one of his granddaughters. And he gave me all kinds of good food to eat, and he gave me wonderful things to drink, and he let my girls play with the toys in his kitchen, and he was fabulous. And from that point on, we had to call him Grandpa Irv. And he just started talking. And as fast as he would talk, I would write down what he was talking as quickly as I could, and pretty soon I had 5 to 10 pages of a spiral-bound notebook filled with lots of little notes and stories from Grandpa Irv. And so Grandpa Irv told me these stories, and I said, well, you know, Grandpa Irv, I really would like my female character, or my main character, to be a female. And he just looked at me kind of funny, and he said, well, Rachel, girls don't jump. And, you know, that kind of clinched it for me, because what more do we need in a book than conflict and a main character that's trying to overcome either societal expectations that are prohibiting them from doing something or some sort of a limitation. And so when I heard that girls don't jump, I thought to myself, yes, girls are going to jump. And he didn't like that. He didn't like this, but that's not true. That's not how it was. And I said, but this is historical fiction, Grandpa Irv. This is fiction. And so, you know, he wasn't so thrilled, really, about the idea of the main character of the girl jumping, because it wasn't true to the era that he was remembering. But he also accepted it with open arms and understood that that was my concept for making the book something that would be a desirable read. So I began doing my research, and for about 6 months I plopped myself down at the Old Hartford Library and read through year after year after year, from about 1927 through about 1942. I just read through Times Press after Times Press after Times Press. And anything that was related to the ski jump, I made copies. Anything related to big blizzards and weather, and, you know, just to kind of really start to get an idea of what it was like to live in the Hartford area at that time. It was fascinating. And it was fascinating, too, to read just the way that the journalists would write back then. It wasn't a journalistic approach. It was truly as if you were writing to your neighbor in a letter. It was more of a personal way of writing in the paper. And if you mentioned somebody's name, it was pretty much presumed that everybody knew exactly who you were talking to. You almost didn't even have to mention the name at times. This person's wife said blah, 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 and it would be worded as this person's wife instead of using the name, because everybody knew everybody. It was such a strong sense of community, and I really liked that. Besides researching in the Times Press, I also interviewed a number of people from the area that either were directly involved in the ski jumping, or were relatives, or had been to the ski jumps but maybe were observers and didn't actually jump. Grandpa Irv was the main person, I would say, that gave me the majority of my information. I also did interview Elmo Halverson extensively. He was fabulous and quite a ball of energy even into his older years. I interviewed Charlotte Foyts, and she had some wonderful things for me. I also interviewed Anita Raymer, Bob's sister, and she had some great familial stories for me, and I interviewed Bob himself. So taking all that information and the stories and the research that I did in the paper, along with my own ideas of what I wanted to happen, that's how My Wooden Wings kind of came together. Another aspect of My Wooden Wings is the story of Vivian's mother, who has diabetes. And I'll talk about that a little bit more during my presentation, but I'll kind of give you an idea of why I had an interest in diabetes. So I graduated from Hartford High School, went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, got my bachelor's degree, and then went to the University of Colorado, where I got my master's degree. And it was particularly in pediatric medicine. I was a physician assistant, and I spent a good part of one of my summers during my internship up in the Rocky Mountains at the Rocky Mountain Camp for Kids with Juvenile Diabetes. And I ran some trials there and basically completed my master's project there, and really just developed this very, very strong interest in diabetes and how it works in the body. And when I decided to write my book about the ski jump, and I look at the time frame, I also was looking at the time frame of when insulin was discovered, and they were so close, and I just thought that that was fate. And so I had to include that piece about the diabetes in my book because it was something that I knew something about. I had a kind of a personal connection with it, and just the history of how insulin was discovered is so fascinating in itself. So I think I'm just going to get started with my presentation here. Well, I think everybody here knows, okay, not a good start there. There we go. Everybody here knows that Hartford had a ski jumping club 80 years ago. I did not know this until this was the picture that was left on my parents' countertop. Maybe I'll sit down so people can see. So you can see, the picture itself, as interesting as it is, you really don't get a great sense as to the size of the ski jump. There's not a huge crowd there. Grandpa Irv thought that this was likely one of the practices that was held on Sunday afternoons during the winter. This was not one of the big tournaments when they had all of their food stands and everything set up and big bonfires going and crowds up to thousands and thousands of people big. Here's a very nice picture of Grandpa Irv in his younger, dapper years. And this is just a picture that I included of the Snowflake Ski Club ski slide up in Westby, Wisconsin. This used to actually exist in Beloit, and then they took the whole structure down, transferred it up to Westby, and this exists there now. It's one of the biggest freestanding ski slides in the nation and one of the oldest. I think it gives you a really good sense of just how daring the jumpers have to be when they get to the top to force themselves to go down. This is a picture of something that's right around the corner over there. You can see the picture here and then go see it in three-dimensional form around the corner. This is a model that Grandpa Irv had made of the Ashippun ski slide. And this picture is also around the corner. This is Grandpa Irv's dad, Harold. And Harold Skalstad traveled here from Norway at the age of 19 aboard the boat, the CF Tietgen. He left his home in Norway as an immigrant to the United States of America to establish perhaps a more fruitful life for himself and his future family. And when he left Norway, he brought along the love of ski jumping with him, which would eventually take form as the Hartford ski jumping ski slide. This kind of shows the map of the Scandinavian-American ship line route that existed at the time, starting over in Copenhagen and going to Oslo, and then taking ourselves all the way down to New York. And this is an actual picture of the CF Tietgen when it was being used. So this is the ship that Mr. Skalstad traveled to the United States of America on. Now, this was not an uncommon thing to happen, to have ships full of immigrants at that time. This is not Mr. Skalstad's ship, I'm sure. The odds of it being the correct ship would be very, very small. But this picture just really struck me as how those conditions must have been for those people that were traveling and immigrating and for weeks and weeks at a time on the ocean to get to their new destination. It must have just been outrageously awful. I can't imagine it having been really a fun experience. It must have just been so trying. And when they arrived, they would come to Ellis Island. They'd get off their boat with their belongings, basically everything that they had with them at that time. So the rest of that was their life at that time. And they would go inside the Ellis Island structure and check in and register in the United States of America. And within a short period of time, Mr. Skalstad found himself in Ashippun, Wisconsin. And when he got here, he realized that he missed his homeland, and he needed to have a small piece of it here with him. And one of the first things that he did when he was in Ashippun, within a year or two of being here, is he was the leader, the director, the supervisor of the construction of the Hartford ski jumping ski slide. Once a year, the Hartford Ski Club held their ski tournament, and at this time, okay, I guess that's not the right slide. At this time, the jumpers that were there, they were divided into 3 classes, Class A, Class B, and Class C. Class A was the adults. Class B was the middle-aged men, ages 16 to about the age 20. And Class C was 15 years of age and under. And they had 3 jumps. They were distance jumps. They would measure the distance from the point of takeoff, that green point there, where it says jump, down to their point of landing, which would have been on their landing slope. And they would add up those 3 distances, and the person that had the greatest distance jumped at that time was declared to be the winner. And sometimes the winner would just win bragging rights. Other times there had been monies donated by sponsors in the Hartford area. Sometimes they would win a pair of custom-made skis, or just a new pair of wooden skis that would be carved for them. And they always won the right to dance with the beautiful ladies at the Schwartz Park Pavilion at the dance that followed. So here's just kind of more of the information that I just gave you, and this article was in the Times Press. I believe that this is also posted on the wall around the corner. And one thing I would like to, maybe I'll read to you the first paragraph, because I think it's just kind of fun to hear how they wrote it this time. So it says, Olson is winner of ski jump. An enthusiastic crowd was present to witness the annual ski meet sponsored by the Hartford Ski Club at their slide in the town of Ashippun last Sunday afternoon. After postponing the meet on 2 occasions alone this winter because of bad weather, the wait was rewarded by some excellent weather and a fine turnout. And it talks about the winners. Now in Class A, that's the adults, it was John Olson. In Class B, the winner was Edwin Foytz. And Elmo Halverson, who we've talked about a number of times, took 3rd. Wally took 5th. And in Class C, you can see that Grandpa Irv, he was the winner for the youth division. And his good friend Al Foytz took 3rd in that particular competition. So these are just, names that I know people have been mentioning already tonight, and these guys were the stars of the show. So here's just a picture of what the skis looked like. They were hand-carved from different types of wood. Grandpa Irv told me that he preferred maple. I'm not exactly sure why. Maybe it gave him a very smooth ride because of the density of the wood, but they preferred hand-carved maple. And, the skis weren't the same as the skis that we have nowadays with those quick-release bindings. If you fall, you're skiing today and you fall, the skis can sense that change in your momentum, and the skis will snap off before you twist your knees and you have some sort of an injury. These skis, basically you put your boots down on these steel contraptions, and then leather straps wrapped around and around and around your boots, and if you fell, nothing was going to fall off, except maybe your leg if it twisted too many times. But Grandpa Irv told me that if you fell, the directions were to hug your knees to your chest as tight as you could into a ball, and just hold on to your legs as tightly as you could to try and prevent them from twisting. Because if they twisted and your knee was out, well, you were kind of doomed at that time. So in my book, My Wooden Wings, as I told